From this slide, we are going to talk about each services in details. So first, let's see the user interfaces. Command line interface allows direct command entry from the users, so which also called command interpreter, shorted as CI. The command can be implemented inside the kernel or implemented as a system program. So sometimes the operating system may provide multiple flavors as different shells. For example, Windows operating system also provide command line interface. So the default one looks like the one provided in the MS-DOS system. However, you can install other flavors of shells. For example, the Cygwin shell. The Cygwin can provide most of the normal Linux commands. So then some students may ask that, so in this course, can we just use Cygwin in the Windows to do the programming assignments? I'm sorry, the answer is no. Do you remember the name of this course? It's operating system. So for some programming assignments, so we need to go deep in the operating system. So when you do such kind of operations, the stuff there is still for Windows instead of Linux. So you still need to use native Linux operating system or install Linux operating system on the virtual machine. And also, the command line interface will fetch a command from user and execute it in the operating system. So sometimes the commands are built inside the kernel, but sometimes they are just the names of programs. So the difference between these two are listed here. So for the built-in commands, so since they are built inside the kernel, they are very efficient. However, so when you want to add some new features, you need to be careful because if there are some bugs in the command, so when you run the command, it may crash the entire system. And also, after you finish the command design, you need to recompile and relink the kernel. It may take a lot of effort and time to polish the command. So on the other hand, if the commands are created as a program, so that is much easier for design and debug. So you don't even need to restart the operating system. It can make the design process much convenient. However, since the commands are designed as the program and built outside of the kernel, so the efficiency has been much reduced compared with the built-in one. But it is good enough for most of the normal users. The next user interface is graphical user interface. So I know you guys may quite familiar with it. It can be shorted as GUI. Usually we call it GUI. GUI provides user-friendly desktop metaphor interface. So traditionally, GUI will use mouse and keyboard as input and use monitor as output. And also the icons are used to represent files, programs, and the different actions, etc. So since all you guys are quite familiar with GUI, so definitely you know what the single click and double clicks and the right click means. So when you use the mouse, right? So nowadays, mobile devices become very popular, but the traditional input devices are not included. There's no mouse and the physical keyboard. Therefore, other types of input devices have been introduced. For example, touch screen. So it requires new GUI. Instead of using mouse as a control input device, so you can use different gestures to control the mobile devices. For example, you may know what the single touch means and what the double touch means. And when you use the two fingers to touch the screen and move to different directions, means different command. So although the physical keyboard is not available, so you can still tap in the data through the virtual keyboard. So as the technology development, we have a voice commands to control the devices. For example, you can use Siri in Apple devices and use Cortana in Windows 10. Right now, we even have more input ways, such as in VR or AR. So you can use your body movement to control the devices. For example, you can wave your hand or move your arm or some combined body movements as commands to control the devices. Nowadays, most of the operating systems support multiple user interfaces. For example, in previous version for Windows, both support GUI and the command line interface. And in Windows 8 and 10, officially they can support touch screen and even voice command, as we just mentioned. For Apple, Mac OS is Aqua GUI interface with Unix kernel underneath. So we have mentioned that part of the Mac OS kernel is open source. And also both GUI and the command line interface are supported by Mac OS. In Unix and Linux, after you install the native version or virtual version, so you will know that they will support GUI and command line interface as well.